140 passengers sitting on an American airline aircraft noticed that even after 15 minutes of takeoff, the plane was not gaining much altitude. Just as the passengers were noticing this, all of a sudden the pilot rang the announcement bell. Soon after, the pilot broke critical news to 140 passengers.
Tower, this is Flight.
Ladies and gentlemen,
JetBlue 292, descend at pilot's discretion, maintain 2000.
Welcome back to All About Aviation. On the 21st of September 2005, American Airlines JetBlue Flight 292 was ready for departure from the Californian city of Burbank. It was 3 p.m. and the flight was about to take off at 3:15 p.m. for New York. Everything was going according to plan. 140 passengers boarded the plane and the airline crew had loaded all the luggage. They were waiting for the clearance from the control tower to take off. At 3:15 p.m. sharp, the pilot of the plane, Captain Scott Burke, was given clearance from the control tower to take off. Exactly 2 minutes later, at 3:17 p.m., the plane bid farewell to Burbank Airport. Neither the pilot, the crew, nor the 140 passengers boarding the plane knew that they were about to witness one of the most horrifying situations of their lives. Just 15 minutes later, the passengers noticed that the plane was not gaining much altitude. Soon, Captain Scott made an announcement where he said, "We are facing technical difficulties." Listening to this, the passengers panicked. Some said one engine of the plane had failed, and others speculated that maybe the engines had lost power to gain altitude. But the actual situation was even more serious. Half an hour passed since the plane took off, but it was still flying over California. Again, the pilot announced that they are receiving warning signals from the landing gear. Even the pilot had no clue what these warning signals meant. What could be the problem with the landing gear that was causing the system of Flight 292 to issue continuous warnings? Captain Scott was quite distressed, unable to figure out the problem, and that was the reason he didn't want to gain much altitude. The pilot wanted to inspect the landing gear so that he could assess the danger. To investigate, he diverted the aircraft toward Long Beach Airport and lowered the altitude even more. The control tower of Long Beach Airport zoomed in on the landing gear using a camera. They found that the nose wheel had rotated 90 degrees to the left. Now it was clear that they would either have to crash land or perform an emergency landing. After receiving this bad news, the control tower delivered another bad news. They informed the captain that local news channels in Long Beach had recorded the footage of the landing gear of Flight 292, and it was being broadcast live on American news channels. Not only that, but the passengers on Flight 292 were also able to see this broadcast live on their in-flight entertainment system screens. It had been 50 minutes since JetBlue Flight 292 took off, and the plane was continuously circling over California. There was no way to turn the landing gear. If the aircraft attempted to land in this situation, the fire resulting from friction could reach the fuel tank in the wings, which might lead to dangerous consequences. Astoundingly, there were 14,000 kilograms of jet fuel on board. The weight of the jet fuel was equivalent to 12 family cars. With so much fuel, the plane could be blown up if it caught even a spark of fire. But Captain Scott was smart. He decided to empty the fuel before landing. To do so, he flew the plane over the sea for 3 hours. Now the plane had fuel left for only half an hour of flight. This last half hour was very important for JetBlue Flight 292 and its 140 passengers. The pilot decided to crash land the plane at Los Angeles Airport because it was the nearest airport. Captain Scott contacted the Los Angeles Tower and informed them to be ready for any kind of situation. Captain Scott also turned off the in-flight entertainment system screens for the passengers, who were watching the entire situation unfold live on their screens. It was an emotional moment for everyone on board. A passenger recorded the entire situation on his camera and also recorded a video message for his family. JetBlue Flight 292 was now under the radar of the Los Angeles Tower, and the airport crew made all the preparations to save the aircraft. From fire trucks to ambulances, everything was ready. The airport tower contacted the pilot of the plane, Captain Scott, for the last time and gave the clearance for landing. After receiving the clearance, the pilot requested all the passengers to sit in crash position.
brace, 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 brace.
Sitting in this position during a collision can help save lives to a certain extent. This position is also called the brace position. The plane had reached the Los Angeles airport runway. The pilot, with his great maneuvering skills, touched down with the rear landing gears and gradually slowed the plane. Finally, the pilot made the front landing gear touch the ground. And then, the situation everyone had been anxious about happened. As soon as the front landing gear touched the ground, it caught terrifying fire due to friction. The fire was so severe that the passengers inside also felt the heat. But soon everything became quiet, and the plane safely came to a halt. It was at that moment when the pilot, crew, passengers, and the entire nation watching the events live let out a sigh of relief. One by one, the passengers were evacuated. The friction had been so severe that the wheel of the front landing gear had been halved. During the investigation, it was found that the lock in the front landing gear, which prevents the wheel from spinning, had broken. As a result, the landing gear turned 90 degrees soon after takeoff. Thanks to the pilot's extraordinary skills, not a single person was injured.